setting the stage for you. 1995, Oshawa, Ontario, Canada. A small little club called the Eclipse attached to a bigger club called the Moon Room. And I see this band featuring a drummer whose drum kit is made up of all these weird things that you'd find at like junkyards and various places, including cymbals made out of sheet metal. I'd never heard or seen anything like it. And then the band I was in would play with them. Then I promoted shows with them and then ended up tour managing them in a couple of other different projects. And it's been a long time. So today, Christian Simpson of Glueleg stops by to talk about his brand new record on Do.Did.Will, the Story of People podcast. Christian Simpson, welcome to Do.Did.Will, the Story of People podcast. Buddy, it's been a long time. How you doing?
It sure has, Brent. I'm great, man. How are you? I don't know how long it's been.
It's been a long time because I haven't seen you since I moved to Vancouver, which is like 18 years. I think the last thing we probably personally did together was Billy Clifford, maybe.
Oh my God, you were on that? I forgot all about that. So that was the Canadian Idol.
It was the Canadian. I think that was the last thing we did because we worked with our fallen friend Bob. You know, unfortunately, and he passed. But Bob had the new thing there with Billy Clifford. I think you were there. It was Jerry Finn. It was Tim from the Headstones. I think.
Headstones. Yeah, we were just I guess just getting him through a couple of dates and then doing the Canadian Idol performance. So yeah, that was what that was. It was kind of, I guess at that time I was doing, sort of sessions and that, and kind of, I think that was probably the last thing I did before I hung him up.
Wow. Was that?
And then of course I picked them up again, but that's drumsticks, just for those that don't know, 15 years later. And here we are.
I know music. It's been a long time. It's funny because how social media works a lot is, you move. Like the rise of social media, honestly, there was MySpace when I left, and then it was Facebook, and then obviously Insta and all the rest of it. But this is how we sort of see people. And even though I haven't spoken to you in a long time, we haven't seen each other in a long time, but we spent, a lot of shows together. Did a lot of shows for Bob. I did a lot of shows as a promoter that you guys were involved in, and but then watching like you and Krista and like just and the kids, and it's like you feel like you're there the whole time. It's like we've never not been there.
Exactly. And I always wonder who you're working for, you usually say where you are, but not what the band is. So I'm always like, who's Brent with this time? Because now I know it's Imagine Dragons, but because I've been following your exploits as well, and you're all over the world just doing it, man. You're killing it.
It's been fun, but I tell you, and I tell this to anybody that I get a chance to speak to, that was part of that journey for me at the beginning. And I always like to tell them, especially when I get a chance to finally reconnect with people after a while, I'll say this: you're here, my man. You're part of this because Glueleg was, and there's agents and managers and blah blah blah. But I cut my teeth on those early Glueleg, I Mother Earth. Our Lady Peace show, like all those early shows, and you guys always were great to me. You gave me an opportunity to do shows, and I think I probably did about 6 to 8 shows as a promoter of Glueleg, but then you guys were on other things, and then I was tour managing bands that you guys were playing with, and you were always great to me. So I always like to circle it back to where I am now. You guys are with me still. Right. You know what I mean? And anyone who knows my history will know that I loved Glueleg very much, and so it's great. So.
Yeah, we're all standing on someone's shoulders, right? I wasn't going to refer to us as giants.
Well, hey, man, it's like we're all part of the thing.
Yeah, we are all of our influences and our inspiration and who got us started, and but it's great to see that you hung in there and you're doing these massive gigs around the world.
It's been a blast, dude. And every time you see me post a picture from a stadium filled with 50,000 people, it started with Glueleg at the Eclipse in Oshawa with me marveling at your drum set made out of tin.
Oh, I
and sheet
remember that.
metal and
Yeah.
stuff, and I'm just like, what is going on here? And it was awesome.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. What was that called? The Moon?
the moon room and the eclipse. There was two sides.
Oh, the Moon Room
High
and the
Carrie
Eclipse.
King,
Yeah,
High
two
Carrie,
sides.
and everybody
Yeah.
involved there. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was the moon room on one side and the eclipse on the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the moon room was sort of the 19 plus room. The eclipse was more of the all ages room.
Okay. Got
You
it.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
had the
Yeah.
big giant headstones, H on the side of the building, and
Right. 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 Right.
it was a go-to stop in Oshawa. But
It was. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. And you're not too far away from there now. But you, man, you've been making some noise and doing some really cool stuff. And you've basically have resurfaced to the world with this wonderful name, a band that I hold near and dear, and it was very much a part of my early career, and you just put a brand new record out, which is awesome.
Oh,
It's very
cool.
trippy and very cool, and so different than what I was expecting. But I'm in on it. It's such a trip on the headphones. So we'll get into that. But welcome to Do.Did.Will. It is the Story of People podcast. So Christian, I got to kick it off. What do you do, man?
Okay. Well, what do I do? Do you mean as
What are you doing right now? You're playing
career?
drums. You're making records. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's
Well, I'm
keeping you
doing that.
busy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I left the music business 15 years ago, and never thought I would look back, and had no real interest in it. There was nothing that I liked enough to kind of pull me back in.
Yeah.
It certainly wasn't, playing with, as a support drummer or doing sessions or things like that. I did some of that with Edwin and some other Moist. I did a small tour with, and Clipper and some other artists. And I did a stint a few years in Saga, which was great,
Right.
and that was more of a, like, you're part of the band, and not like you're just sort of supporting the singer. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That just wasn't where I wanted to be musically, and so I had no problem at the time walking away. And so, I mean, after that, I had to kind of completely reinvent myself because, I didn't really have another skill set really. But I adapted, and I ended up starting my own company. We work in condominiums,
Awesome.
and so that has it's gone well, and that has allowed me to actually be able to do this. One, it gave me the there was a move which we talked about just before we aired. I moved out of the city, and I have a property now that has a large, well, it's a pool, actually a pool room, an indoor pool, but that I use as my drum room. And as soon as we walked in the house, I remember walking in the room, and I snapped my fingers, and I could hear the reverb
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
in the room, and I just thought, oh wow, this room's got great acoustics. And I've always had a drum set with me, at least one, but I mean, it hadn't been set up for years because I was in a house in Riverdale, so nowhere to set it up. So
No.
anyway, this move, and I gave us the space, and I thought, well, I'll set the kit up, and maybe my boys I've got young boys, and maybe they'll want to play it. And again, I never thought of myself, but I kind of keep looking at it like, oh, I wonder how
do.
bad I would be, after that long away from it. And so anyway, Carlos and I had not spoken for at least a decade or more, and but we reconnected, but just sort of socially. There was no there was no talk of hey, let's do a record or put the band back together. And but he's always stayed with music. He's I think he's it's 4 solo albums he's done under the Alonzo moniker, and he's produced and mixed them all himself, and they're really fantastic. Um, the arrangements are very lush and elaborate and interesting, and if I thought, well, if I ever did get back into it, I would want to be doing something like this. You
Interesting.
know, yeah, it wouldn't have just been kind of keeping time and doing
It's
four four
certainly eclectic, man. It's
doing some
certainly
hit covers or something like that. Again,
yeah.
nothing wrong with that. That just wasn't that interesting to me. So anyway, he kind of kept chipping away. We go hang out, and after a few drinks, he'd be, so come on, man, let's do something. Let's do something. And I'd be like, no, I'm not. No, forget it, man. I would be one. I'd be horrible. Once you attain a certain level of proficiency and you lose that, your desire to go back and play is kind of like, nah, I can't play the way I did, so I'm not going to
Yeah.
do it again. Anyway, he kept hammering away, and then he said, listen, can you just I'm just finishing up mixes on my solo record. I've got one track, and I would like you to play 30 seconds of drums on. I said, well, I don't have any way to record it. He said, you have a phone, right? Yeah. Okay, go, just set your phone up, play along to this section, which was literally like a 30-second piece. And it was just sort of the first thing. And it was, the way I, play, sort of a linear, kind of obtuse with some, layered cymbals and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, so what do you think? And he said, perfect. So he ended up mixing that, putting that on his record. And I realized that, it was it was exciting. It was fun to actually sit down, and I felt, kind of confident with what I had the 30 seconds I had just dropped.
Yeah.
And, and then I said, okay, let's do it. And then, once I said that, I mean, I was in 100%, and I had no doubt, or what did I do, or why did I, it was just, okay, let's go, let's do it. And,
It's amazing how it comes back. I always find myself peeking around the corner at a Long McQuaid or any kind of drum place that I can sit down and try to get some chops in every now and again. I don't have the space either to do it or get loud, but it's amazing where the inspiration comes from, because you set up and you've got a beautiful lake background. It's like I would just play for days now. So then naturally you start recording, and then it's like, well, what else can I do into this thing, and what else can I add to it? So
and also it was during COVID, but we had the ability to, I got set up with a recording system at home, and went out and bought a bunch of mics and stands and cables, and just kind of figured it out. And started to I could record, and then send files to Carlos, and he would send it back to me, and then I would send it back to him, and then and that's the way it worked. And it really allowed us the time. And like, it wasn't just set up a drum set and record a bunch of songs. It was like, oftentimes the drums that I chose, and I have, I put together this sort of arsenal of old drums from, I have from a 30-inch marching drum that I use as a kick drum, with 18-inch hi-hats and a marching snare drum, to little 6-inch hats and a little piccolo snare and a 16-inch kick, and all kinds of wacky cymbals and gongs and stuff. And that often informed what Carlos was going to do. He would hear these different sounds, these different textures, and he would come back with, and then of course that would then, if I were going to do some overdubs or some percussion, that would then inform what I was going to do. The keyboard bass, he was playing upright bass, he was playing stick, he was playing guitar. His main keyboard was an MS-20, I believe, that he found, like some guy had it in his attic or something, and that it's kind of the main instrument, I guess, on the record.
There's a lot of songs on here, man. Like there's 20 different
20 tracks. Yeah,
songs. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Which
we
is
decided to do a double album.
which is amazing. I
Probably too much for most people. Like to get through it, it's it's
I'll
a
see if
lot.
I can play something here for a sec. I'll play some audio for a sec if I can here,
You sure?
and see if it comes out.
This is a weird one.
Yeah,
This would
but
be
there
the
was
most obtuse track on the record. It's
there's
sort of
some
a
great-
drum solo.
there's some great drumming. Listen to that room.
It's big.
Listen to that room. It's incredible, man. You know, you got some really cool like. Some trippy stuff in here, dude. It's funny how we move along because I've gotten a touch more trippy in my age. Like it's like you really gotta bring it now for me to be fully engulfed in a record. The only one that's been able to do that lately has been Ian Thornley. Like as far as, well, he's been great, and as far as like those big rec records are just always like they come out every year. Like he's got like 10 songs of just headphone stuff. So it's been awesome. Your buddy Jeremy Taggart was in on this too, right?
Yep.
What track did he play on?
He's on a track called Emerson's Elephant.
Here we go. I think I might have called it when I was.
He's on left side. He's right side.
I figured it was this one.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. So you guys did like a right left. He's playing. Yeah, it was. There's some really great video. What we'll do here, because YouTube is our friend sometimes, but they don't like it when we put up on don't get permission. So what I'm going to do is
I'll give you permission right now.
for everyone listening and all the rest of it. I'll put all the links in for Instagram purposes. When I release this episode, we're going to do tons of like video clips surrounding this thing because it's very
cool.
It's such a different ride than I was expecting what you put out. But then it's headphone. But yeah, and it's cool. I like to be surprised because for me, it's like, oh, there's this, and then it's
yeah, and just to put a point on that, finer point on that, that was I didn't want to do anything that sounded like the old band. I was not interested in that at all, and that was part of Carlos. I was on the same page. It was we had kind of thought, well, should we even call it that, Glueleg? We kind of debated that back and forth and decided, well, why not? We were integral parts of that band, and again, it does. And I've had many people comment on this, like the sound is obviously quite different. One, there's no vocals, and there's very little guitar, but many have commented that this does. Also, it sounds there are things that are certainly more than reminiscent of the old band, which is great. So I think we accomplished what we set out to do. Wanted to do something radically different.
I think I noticed that. Is it maybe Lobotomy Chic sounded a little bit like the old old style.
I think the Aegis, the first track has a bit of that. Yeah, that has that's interesting. That particular track has. There's a guitar on that one, a guy by the name of Christian Sesniak, who I played in Edmonton.
Oh, yeah.
Ian Crichton, not Thornley, Crichton, from Saga, just delivered this like ridiculously amazing guitar solo. And the Emerson's Elephant actually had Jim Gilmore, from keyboard player from Saga, on it. That was sort of our tribute to Keith Emerson.
Very cool. I like the throwback. I don't know if you Todd Kearns and Brent Fitz and those guys. They have a band called Took, and they do all the throwback to the Canadian stuff. That's awesome. You know what I mean? They've got a really great band. Actually, yeah, they got a great. They play tons, and they do all the Canadian party stuff. But they're also kind of paying tribute to the lost Canadian stuff that people need to hear. Nice. So I got to double check. I think they were they had designs on some of this stuff. So going from what you're up to now, but let's take me back a little bit. How did you do it? how did you find your style? This is I'm very interested in your style because anyone that is not familiar with Christian, he's got this really unique playing style, which is amazing. But he incorporates all these sounds and stuff. The first time I ever saw you play, again back in Oshawa at the Eclipse maybe or one of the other ones, and
Hmm.
you had a drum kit that was just so eclectic and amazing. And then you had sheet metal and all these different things set up for cymbals and different sounds, which made it very unique to you, obviously. But were you
Okay.
just bored with cymbals, or were you like, I want to add a whole new thing here to
No, I
and make
wanted
it my thing?
to. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff I had, I was using at that time. I mean, I'd stolen from guys that my heroes, um, and I just to back up a sec. That's my biggest compliment to hear when somebody says, you have a very unique sound. Because I go on Instagram and I go and see some of these drummers on there, and I mean their technique is just absurd. It's almost like the Olympics now of chops and technique. And I used to have really much better, I guess, hands than I do now. Um, but so again, I don't have that facility to really kind of blow like in the old days, or like some of these guys I see now. Um, but the fact that people recognize that, well, yeah, you have your own sound, that to me is more important than anything.
Yeah.
I'd rather have, just a really recognizable sound that is, I mean, there's lots of guys doing what I do, but that sound like I do. But yeah, I mean, I was doing it 20 years, 30 years ago almost, and it was quite different back then. I got the sheet metal, which I was using as a ride, which we found at a scrapyard. I got that idea from I saw Einstein's new Boughton at the Diamond back in the 80s, and I heard that part of their rider was they'd had somebody take them to a scrapyard before the show, and they just get like car hoods, and they're pouring the buckets of gravel on it and stuff. And I was just kind of blown away. And they had this big sheet metal that they were kind of banging on. And, I thought, oh, I'm going to do that. And then it was just kind of finding just all these, a chunk of metal lying around. And then my cymbals, the more kind of broken they were, the better, the better. And I, kind of layer them up and just have a really sharp sound. I was using a gong drum as a floor tom, rototom rings as hi-hats, which I still do. I was doing that back then, but that I stole from Terry Bozzio.
Oh yeah.
I saw him doing it. So drummers like Bozzio, Bill Bruford, Neil Peart, of course. A lot of the more progressive guys out there, just kind of they were my biggest influences, and again, I wanted to kind of carve out my own
let
sound.
me let me ask you about that time though, because when I first saw the band, it was, you had the stick, it was just such a unique sounding, looking creation, and that at the time, and I really think that in that early '90s time frame, everyone was carving out their way, and it sort of a lot of things had switched, and the rise of Canadian, obviously CanCon helped. People debate whether CanCon helped or not, but for the radio guys out there that I know, they hated it because they had to just keep playing Canadian music all the time. But for the music fan like me, it really created a Canadian
Yeah.
touring base. Hence how we met. Hence how my
Yep.
career started. So I've been a fan of it.
We
But
had our own star system. I guess we do. I mean, I don't know who they are now.
well, it's a
Because I'm
different
not really in
thing
touch
now.
with a lot of stuff, a lot of
big
the newer stuff.
the big thing now, and I don't mean to sound frustrating about this thing, but the big thing now is that a band at the time that had, like, you guys were on Much Music and you played and all the rest of it, those bands are now going out and selling out everything right away. Whereas it was still the grind. Like now, these kids go and they see them one time. And a lot of them I don't find have a ton of longevity. You've got in your neck of the woods, you got Glorious Sons, you got we got Arkells and stuff that have really built. Out here, there's Mother, but the MTV Much Music thing is gone. So a lot of the bands are, it's all social media stuff. So the kids get hammered with it. They all want to go see it, and then it falters off. And I don't
Mhm.
know, if we have the big stadium kind of bands anymore that we did with like Our Lady Peace and some of the In the Hip and some of those things at that point. I don't know if anyone's been able to do it. I know the Arkells have done it a few times in some of the markets, but it is definitely a different time right now for the bands. And when you were coming through, so you guys started with this eclectic thing, and then and I won't dive too much into the past, but I do want to get your thoughts on the idea of going down this road where it's not, I'm not going to use the word pop, but there was definitely more of a radio rock vibe to the thing. Was that frustrating for you as a creative person? Because you always had the stuff in there, but the band definitely went in a bit of a different direction after the first albums and stuff, and it was definitely different from this point. And then obviously we're into this
Mhm.
2.0 or 3.0 that we are
Mhm.
now, which for me as a music fan, it's great. You watch the three different things happen, but you as a creative person
Yeah.
and carving out your uniqueness, were you put into a box during that time, or did you fight to still be unique?
Well, I mean, you can certainly see from Heroic Doses to Clodhopper, I think Heroic Doses was, let's just create something. Like, we had this vision of doing something that was just really unique to ourselves, and
Yeah.
the instruments that we were using, and the songwriting craft that we had at the time, we were using at the time, developing. Um, yeah, it was definitely different. It was, certainly it didn't, radio didn't really embrace us, or we weren't. It was a hard sell. I understand that. I'm surprised that we almost got as much play as we did, as minimal as it was. I'm surprised, we got kind of any. And then Cloudhopper was a bit of a step in the direction of, embracing Much Music a little bit more in the radio, and just trying to kind of streamline maybe the edges a little bit, create something that's a little more radio friendly, but keeping
Sure.
the but because at that time we were, it was about trying to have a career, trying to make it
Absolutely.
as musicians, right? This album that we just did, that Carlos and I just did, was back to Heroic Doses, but even more. It was, what, we don't have to do anything for anybody other than
Yeah.
ourselves. If somebody hears it and they don't like it, well, great. Old fans hear it and they go, well, that's not Glueleg. Okay. Um, but it wasn't, well, what's the single going to be? I remember even back in the day, you'd have to kind of write, well, we need a barn burner to open with, so, and that would then dictate what you're going to write. Where this came from, just a real position of, it was a luxury, because we didn't really have, we have no expectations of this selling or making money. I mean, as long as, some people hear it and they enjoy it, and um, that's enough. And we're very proud of it. The end result, I think, we're very, very happy with it. I think people listen to, especially fans of the old band, and you know. I wouldn't say necessarily an older generation, but my generation, I think there's more that grew up listening to a lot of prog rock, progressive
Yeah.
rock.
Yeah.
I think like it will like it if they hear it, because it is quite progressive, but it's also new. It doesn't really sound like anything else,
No, it sound well.
and that's
And
great.
it sounds
That's
like a
what we want.
soundtrack, actually.
Well,
To me, it
it's very
sounds like
cinematic.
it's very cinematic. Sounds like a movie soundtrack. Um, Takes you on a bit of a ride, and there's 20 tracks for you to dive into. That takes you all over the place. But I
A lot of
hiked with.
ideas on this record.
Sure.
Yeah, we had thought. I know Carlos, because he, did the lion's share of, obviously, the production and the mixing, and there were a few moments where I know he wanted to tap out and just release a single record, and I kind of kept pushing. Come on, man, we got to do. It's our physical graffiti. Let's go.
Yeah,
So,
just go.
and then once it's released, you realize, like, oh, wow, that's a lot to demand of someone. To here you go. Here's. Because nowadays people listen to the first 30 seconds of a song and then move on. So
There's two different ways. You're forcing the listener to commit, So for me, it's like, okay, there's 20. When I see something that's got 20 songs on it, I go, it's a commitment of the process. So you have to pay, like, we the listener has to pay tribute to you, the creator. And what we have to do is, if you've put out 20 tracks, it means you have a vision here that it's going to take us 20 songs to appreciate, and not individually. It's 20 songs of like a body of work. So that's what I kind of look at. And I'm a not full prog guy, but I am very, I was a massive I Mother Earth fan. I like Rush. I like all that stuff. But it was, I like it when bands take me on a journey. It's okay to have your 4/4, your chorus, your pre-chorus, and out. But I really love it when bands, especially headphone wise, take me on a journey. And that's why, like, I look at 20 songs and I go, okay, well, he has prepared us to go on a journey.
Yeah, and it's not again. We've got to write here's 2 or 3 singles on a record, and then the rest is just kind of filler or kind of. I mean, how many albums were there? Created like that. Huge, massive selling albums that had big singles, and then a lot of the other stuff was just sort of just again filler. This is these are all kind of different sort of snapshots of the last year and a half, I guess, and just a spark of an idea that would develop into what all of these tracks became, and often they were just from this choice of a cymbal or a keyboard sound, or so, and then they would just grow and and turn into these. Again, we did kind of want to create something that did have a cinematic.
How far were you into it when you said to yourself, like, either A, this is going way different than I thought it was going to be, and so now you rewrap your head around maybe where it's going, or were you kind of committed to 4 or 5 ideas and then built it around it? Because it does sound to me like there was like, start with one song maybe, and oh man, I got this idea, and then it just seems to have come together in this. Like, how do you get 20 ideas out of this process is incredible to me, because it's a really long, it's a journey here. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. It's a lot to unwrap in your ears.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it clocks in at 87 minutes or something like that. I remember, I think the singer from the Mars Volta said, okay, here's our new record. Please give me an hour of your life to listen to the record. And we're asking for 87 minutes and change. So, we're getting a ton of feedback, and I would say a lot of it has been very, very inspiring, and certainly made it seem all worthwhile. Even though, again, I would say selfishly that we did this record for ourselves, but at the same time, you want people to like it. Obviously,
aren't those the records that always blow up though? They're the ones that's like, well, we didn't. We were just, a lot of stuff came out of the COVID thing where people are like, I don't know if I'm just gonna put this out, and then it becomes the biggest thing. Taylor Swift does it, wins a Grammy. People's opinions about whatever it is, but she's sitting in a cabin with the guys from the National. And next thing you know, it's this like eclectic album. It's like, sometimes you're just like, well, I'm looking at a lake and I made a record, and now it's sonically the best thing we've ever done. It's getting this crazy feedback. That leads me to obviously, with just the two of you at this point creating this thing, where do you want this to go? You personally, is this like, as you said, the physical graffiti, leave it on the table and that's your work? But my next question to the end of this thing is, what will you do next with this?
Well, we do have a coda to this that we've already, half of it's in the can. It is just going to be an EP. And it was stuff that we wanted to get on this record, but we just didn't finish it. And one of them was a track, a Frank Zappa cover, his song Peaches and Regalia. Just a incredible track. And we've almost got it. but it would have taken quite a bit more time to really finish it, and we just thought, you know what, we've got enough on here. Let's put it on an EP.
Great.
So we've got that one. We also have a piece that Jim Gilmore from Saga gave to us, something that he had, and it's actually called Bar Talk, and it's this. It sounds like Bartok, the composer, but we've put our own, Bartok, a bit of Aaron Copland, Steve Reich in there, and so that's going to be on it as well. It's just a short piece, but it's really beautiful. And we're going to write a couple of other pieces for it, and then it'll be done. So it's almost ready. That be a few months anyway, I think, before we end up releasing that. So that's coming, and there is talk of doing a show or shows. I don't know about touring this thing. For one thing, it wouldn't be just the two of us pulling this off.
Well, I was going to say, how are you gonna do it live? Because it looks, there's I have two things to that. How are you going to do it live? But also, it is so trippy, and it lends itself to a very hell of a live experience.
I think if we could pull this off
sonically,
if we do a show, we will pull it off, or we won't be doing the show. It'll have to be great, or it won't. We won't do it. Mm-hmm. And we've already got Jeremy said he would come out and play.
Yep.
Becky, who sang on the record, I'll probably have to twist her arm a little bit, but I think I could get her to do it. Gord Fines, another fantastic drummer in the city, played percussion on a bunch of tracks on this record. He sort of would be the second drummer. We would need a guitar player.
Yeah.
And Carlos would be playing keyboards, and we actually realize that we have to do an instrumental version, a new instrumental version of Heroic Doses. Just for the old fans.
Sure. I mean, there is a bit of that. Are you? How much of the past do you want to bring into this? Because it is
just one track.
Just one track, yeah.
Probably, well, because we don't have a singer, mm-hmm. and this, definitely it's about the new thing. But I think just for fun and a nod to the past, it'd be interesting to just pull out a version of Heroic Doses, but a 2023 version of it, as opposed to 90, 94 or wherever it was we recorded that.
It's and it's
you don't sound convinced.
You doing no, I love it. It's a when I heard this thing for the first time, I instantly, my brain, I'm like, in the round, surrounded by everybody. That number one, just visually to watch what this thing could look like live would be incredible. Like just to see it from overhead, because everyone needs to see you play. Everyone needs to see you play. And I just think, like, great, watching it on the stage, amazing, awesome. But that, to me, listening to this thing, I'm like, visually, in the round or something, like where everyone's over top of you looking, would be an incredible immersive experience of what this record is. But it also lends
somebody that hasn't played in 15 years.
Understood. But and then the other side of it, it is trippy enough that it could do. I think it could do like a different version without the full band per se, where it is more electronic based, and you can play some of these electronic festivals, because it's very, very trippy in that regard, and that's kind of a new thing. So I look at this thing as like
very interesting,
like a very interesting experience. It's like with the new record sounding the way it does sonically, like headphone wise, it's just like, it's unbelievable, because it's circles and circles and circles. And so that's what you're asking about, the new listener or the new bands and the new things. They're not, the Arkells are providing a visual experience, which is amazing. They've got the whole thing. It's happy. It's incredible. It's a visual thing. This thing is sonically, but it needs to be seen as well, because there's so much going on this record. And so I'm like, I wonder if you can mix some of the old stuff in with this new style, uh, for the old fans, sure, but more of a challenge. More of a challenge, and you're saying you
Mm-hmm.
want to do heroic
Mm-hmm.
doses, but you guys have some pretty cool stuff over your catalog that would probably move over to this really well too. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's
I mean,
great.
it'd be really interesting to hear a lot of the tunes that with this just not necessarily stripped down. Well, they would be stripped down and built back up in a different way. Yeah, that's actually a very intriguing idea.
Well, because it brings the we're all older now. I mean I sure I could listen to the old records, but it's like,
Sure.
but you can say, all right, thank you for that part of the journey of the early band and everything that we did, and thank you. This is the new version. This is where we're going. There's no rules, but this is where we're going. But we're gonna bring some of that old into this live thing, and then we're gonna take you on this journey with us moving forward, which is gonna be this new version of Glueleg. But I just feel like it lends itself to that. It's great. It's such an experience on the senses. So
Well, you're definitely motivating me right now. Thinking, wait a minute, maybe we can pull this off. Um,
if you think of some of these great performances that have happened, and like there's the I don't know if you're aware of the Hidden I Mother Earth show where they played 3 hours in Barrie in the round.
I think I
And
did hear
it was incredible. I was there. It was
that
like
with both singers, right?
no, they didn't do both singers on that one. That was just with Brian. But if you, but I know that they just played with both singers on a bunch of shows. But I'm just saying, like, there's, it's just footage sitting there that's never come out that I was there for. That was incredible. And instantly when I heard this record, I was like, this would be great in that setting. In the round, everyone's just like what's going on over there now? Fuck, no, what's going on over there? What's going on? And you've definitely taken the listener to a great spot, and I would love to see if you
Yeah,
can
cool.
pull it up.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, cool. Actually, it reminds me, I have to call Christian Tanner because I was supposed to get together for a pint one of these days because he lives out where I live.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Here. He was there first, so we're gonna hang out and get him over and maybe.
I keep bugging his brother. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm waiting. Give me a song. Give me something.
Well, don't they have an album?
No, they haven't done anything.
Coming out with a new record.
Well, they might be. I was.
Okay. I thought I heard that.
You might, who knows? But it's just me, the selfish listener, going, "Come on, let's go. I need some new stuff." So, but I know that there's, the debate of full album versus single tracks and what we just spoke about. But I really appreciate you putting out the 20 songs and taking me on a journey on that. So
it was a labor of love. Certainly, yeah, it was a lot of work.
Where can people find you online, my man, for all this stuff?
Well, the record's on all the streaming sites. So Apple, Spotify, Tidal, Deezer, all of those. On YouTube. Apparently there's hundreds of these things, and those are the ones I know.
What's your favorite track on the record?
Oh, that's a good question. Kind of changes. I really like everything we did. To be honest,
that's a fair answer because
all in different ways. I like Hugo and the Fish quite a bit because stylistically it's very, very different than anything we did in the past. It's sort of our take on jazz. We're not jazz players. I'm certainly not a jazz drummer, but I listen to a lot of it. And again, so it's not traditional jazz drumming, but it's sort of my version of it. And that one I'm pretty proud of. A Zero Day, I think, kind of blends that jazzy element and that song also, the inspiration for that particular track was Ennio Morricone, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Johnny Marr, a bunch of, but and if you listen, you can kind of hear these little things, and that, it's got a lot of energy, but it's also got a lot of intricacies, if you will. Titled the first track, The Aegis, I think is a pretty slamming track too, but yeah, I kind of like them all.
I mean, I know that's a pretty stock question, but this is a unique creation that you've made, so it's sort of like I like to get a take on it because it's like, well, this one took me 4 months to make that song, or it took us this and it took us that. So there, every now and again, there's labor, but you can see, I love this graphic here. You've got Zero Day, you've got Hugo and the Fish, you got it all on this. On the song titles there, which is great too. So
yeah, I did that as I just thought that would be just an interesting post for sort of a track listing.
Yeah.
And so I found this cinder block, painted it white, and just kind of started writing on it. And I put all the song titles on it and sent it to, hey, let's just put this out on the socials. And it was like, that's the album cover. I'm like, okay. So that became the album cover. So that's that block sitting at my house. I was like, I have to give it to Carlos, so he really wants it.
Horror Vakui, is that how you pronounce it?
Horror Vakui.
Horror Vakui is the record. The brand new Glueleg, highly super influential band on my career, just strictly on the fact that Chris and the fellas gave me an opportunity to promote shows in Southern Ontario. This kid that was just starting out, and
you've done well.
Didn't know much, and you guys, I appreciate that, and can't thank you enough for giving a shot to a kid like me to do it. And here we are circling back 20 years later, talking about a brand new Glueleg record, which
never thought it would happen.
Which happens to be probably one of the biggest creations of 20 songs for one of my favorite bands, and I congratulate you, and I thank you for making the time today to come on Do.Did.Will, the Story of People podcast for another week. Everyone pick up the record wherever you get all your things. Apple's
well,
right
there
here.
will be a vinyl release. We're going to do some CDs as well, but there will be it's in production.
Vinyl.
So double. Rad. Yeah, it's going to have lots of artwork, and it's going to be great.
Awesome. That's Chris Simpson. That is the brand new Glueleg record. And you guys, thanks so much for tuning into Do.Did.Will, the Story of People podcast for another week. Be sure to check it out. I'm going to put all the links for the record, how to buy the album, how to listen to the record. I'm going to put clips up all week about some of this favorite stuff from the album, and some of the we'll put some video up of how they made it. There's some great stuff. Be sure to check it out. Christian, hopefully you come back, my man. And,
we'll
talk about
this is great. It's great chatting with you. It's been far too long.
Yeah.
And really appreciate the support.
Thanks, everybody. That's Do.Did.Will, the Story of People podcast for another week. We will see you again next week. Thanks, Christian.
See you. Bye.
What happens when we play outside? We become healthier, both mentally and physically. We become more creative and more focused. We connect with nature, each other, and ourselves. Let's Take This Outside, a new podcast hosted by me, Marianne Iveson, an aspiring outdoor athlete and nature lover. I speak to athletes, outdoor professionals, and scientists about their connection to nature, how it affects their performance, and everyday life. Let's Take This Outside, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, and at letstakethisoutside.ca.
Kids, I'm your eager beaver.
And I'm Mr. Grizzly.
If you love politics
or hate politics,
then have we the perfect podcast for you.
The True North Eager Beaver.
Incisive political commentary.
We keep you up to date
and give you the political and media literacy you seek
to help you
cut through the bovine fecal matter.
Facts first.
Sound analysis.
Sometimes I growl.
Sometimes I sass.
We impart civics and build community.
And we share some laughs along the way.
Being informed
and engaged has never been more fabulous.
Or sexy. Catch us on the Dean Blundell Network or on our YouTube channel.
Or wherever you get your podcasts.
Because democracy is something you do.